Thank you for joining another episode of Happy, Healthy, and Skeptical. We are your hosts, Jennifer Hobson and Christy Palermo, and we are excited to bring you part 2 of our amazing conversation about mentorship with Leslie Humphrey. If you've listened to part 1, you're going to be excited to hear this second part, and if you haven't, I'm going to encourage you to go back because you're not going to want to miss any of the tips that she shares with you. So let's take it away. So I love all of that hit home. I think every single person can relate to at least one of those scenarios, whether or not you have kids too, right? Life can be chaotic and you go down, I like to call it squirreling. I'm just becoming a squirrel. And I just shared this in a conversation we had in our coaching group yesterday. I love to work in the garden and do those things. And yes, those are in alignment with what makes me happy and things that I want to do around my health. However, if I'm using them to get in the way of my success, that allows me to continue to do these things on my own time, I'm actually sabotaging, right? And so I have that group and I have my relationship with Leslie to snap me back into reality or keep me within that bumper lane, right? I'm not starting in lane 1 and ending in lane 8 at the end of the day, figuring out, wait, why am I not accomplishing my goals? Well, that's because this, and this is getting in your way. So I think when we asked you that question, we have said every single one could be its own conversation. Yeah. This one takes a little bit of the nitty and gritty part of being a mentor. We remember not everything is unicorns, rainbows, and sprinkles, right? And that even includes being a mentor. So how do you deal or work through the challenge when either clients or mentees are being resistant to the support and the coaching that you're offering them?
Mm-hmm. Okay. So there's kind of I have two immediate thought processes with that as far as reflecting on that. So the first is if it's someone that, if I'm working with someone, I make it my mission to know what are they working for? Why are we working together? Why are we here? Right. So if I don't know with great clarity what it is that you want, not just in the short-term physical, but like if I'm working with somebody and they want to make a certain amount of money, okay, that's fine, but why? And I will keep asking, but why, to get to the real reasons, the real things. Why are we here? We're here because you want to make sure that your family is never put in a financial position like they were in 2 years ago or whatever it is, right? Like I have a client that had filed for bankruptcy and several years ago, and she's finally back on her feet. And she's like, I don't ever want my family to be in that position again. So I need to work with a coach so that I can make sure that I am on track and always growing. And so, knowing that if I'm working with someone and I see them being resistant towards something, I'm not going to go at them and be like, okay, so I'm seeing this and this, and you should XYZ. What we're going to do is we're going to have a conversation to where we're going to talk about what their perception of the action steps to get us through, right? To break through that. And then talk about maybe if they are telling me the action steps, like if I'm asking you, well, what is it that you feel like you need to do in order to hit this goal this month? And you tell me the things, and I believe that that's truth. Then my next question is going to be, okay, so what's the gap between knowing that that's what you want to be doing and actually doing it? So the resistance isn't that I'm telling them they're resistant, but the way I'm dealing with that specifically is guiding them through their own realization that they are being resistant. So that's the one side of it. And then the other side of it is oftentimes resistance, while it is a real thing, as a mentor, I can tell you that a lot of times that's just something that they have to work through within their own journey, because it might not be resistance to the actual thing that I'm working with them on. And maybe it's something entirely different, like being worthy of success, or am I enoughness, or imposter syndrome. And so I might recommend different things to read or listen to podcasts or whatever that can be relevant for that, and give them some time to work in it as I am gently shining a light, not necessarily calling it resistance. In the first example, we're going to eventually have the conversation about resistance. In the second, maybe not necessarily, because a lot of times it's not necessarily, while it is resistance, it's not resistance in the same way. A lot of times it's just personal growth.
As you're saying all this, I'm having, memories of many conversations on that track. and my hands are getting sweaty as I remember myself going through
Flashbacks.
And that some of the stuff still comes up for me, because some of it's so true that some of it is actual resistance to just doing the thing. And then when you ask the steps to get to the goal, it's like, okay, I just need to focus on those steps. It makes you really get into activity alignment with the activity. But sometimes it is absolutely true that it's other things, even if you're not aware or what's happening. I would say that you, Leslie, are great at having the conversation to bring to light what is coming up and what needs to be worked through, even if it's not specifically said. It's like having aha moments, we like to call of like, oh, like I didn't even realize that was a block for me, or something that I've been holding back on, or because I know I've definitely experienced my share of imposter syndrome, or just not feeling worthy enough to get to the place that I want to be. So I love all of that.
Well, and within that, sometimes what's presenting as resistance, and technically would be, yes, it is resistance, but sometimes it comes from the messaging that's coming from your significant other or your sister, or your parents, or someone from your past, right? Sometimes the resistance isn't necessarily just like stubborn, which that's what a lot of times people think resistance is just this like outright digging in their heels, like I'm not gonna do that. But oftentimes the most resistance comes from the angles that we don't even realize we're being resistant, because it's coming from the whispers of the people in our lives or from our past that are actually creating these paper walls around us that we don't even realize are there.
I love that. As being a mentor and a leader in my business, it's that reminder of not everyone is being intentionally obstinate, right? They're not trying to make it as difficult as possible. Maybe there's a few of them. I'm sure they're out there. But remembering, as a leader or a mentor, or even just a support system, not everybody is trying to intentionally self-sabotage. Sometimes that self-sabotage, like you said, comes from experiences in our past, or memories or thoughts, or whatever it is, the stories we tell ourselves. And we have to be open to going, all right, how can I help guide them to either the aha moment, the solution, or the connection with the activity to get where they need to go, versus, oh my goodness, just working through you creating that resistance. It's not intentional. And they do, if they're working with you, they do want to succeed. Most people don't start working with a coach and a mentor because they just want to, put money down the drain and go, maybe it'll work this time.
Right. But in the same lines, you would be surprised how many people will say they want the coaching, they want the mentorship, and we start talking and I say, we come up with an action plan, and then they say, well, that won't work because fill in the blank. Okay, so no, I'm not going to do that because, and they're giving me every reason why they won't do it, can't do it, shouldn't do it, all of that. And I think to myself, well, why am I here then?
I have seen that side of it too, and that's the mind-boggling one. And I think for people listening, if you are that person, it's time to take responsibility and own it and go, am I actually open to coaching and mentorship from the people around me that do want to push the needle forward? Or I actually don't want to achieve that for whatever reason. I'm not willing to show up and do the work.
So I have a mentor. she's really a coach. She's definitely more of a coach. Right now, my coach is, do I agree with everything she says? No. And does she expect me to? No. But I am a high level professional that has a boatload of experience behind me. And so if I disagree with her and what she's saying, she knows the difference between me being resistant and me saying, okay, so there's another methodology here, and this methodology is more in alignment. And then we can have that conversation, and she can say, yeah, okay, I see what you're saying, and I support that, and I do believe that will work, or I do believe that that is truth in your world, even though I have done things differently, right? And that is how you don't have to agree with everything. It's not being robotic and being like, oh, well, my mentor said this, so this is all I'm going to do. But it's an understanding that that the people, if you are in business with or have hired a coach or a mentor, knowing that you trusted enough to get into that relationship with them professionally. So are you going to trust them overall? And oftentimes we are more married to being right about what won't work or why it won't work for us than we are to having breakthrough towards achieving what we know we really want to achieve.
Oh, so good.
I was literally just going to say, stop, really rewind what you just heard and listen to it again.
I think that's a great piece of advice for anybody listening to this, kind of tolling around with the idea of having a mentor and like just going with that. But also we had wanted to know if you had a mentor. So I'm so glad you answered that question, because we definitely wanted to go down that. And it's a huge point to make, that you don't have to be just robotic in listening to everything, but that knowing that you have a voice in your life and what you know is true for you. But then having somebody that can call you when it is the actual resistance.
Yeah. And she will call me out. She will call me out so clearly, and she will be like, I might say, I'm not really sure about how to do whatever. And she'll go, okay, so are you showing up as her? Does she, your highest self, does she know? And I'm like, but of course, because of course the highest version of me knows. And that's the difference, is that's her way of saying, okay, I'm here for you and we can spitball things, but we also don't have to waste the time. And I think when you are in a place where you are not showing up as her, when you are not working towards being the highest version of yourself that you can possibly identify inside of you, when you're not in that place, you hyper fixate on the how. How do I do this? What about this? And it is a hyperfixation. But when you can go to that next level self and be in that, you can embody that. Yes, there's still practicality in the how. It still is important. And you can embrace the fact that most of the time, there's not just one way of doing something. There's not just one how. And we can, as we are showing up as the best version of ourselves, we are building success patterns just showing up and taking action. And if it's in alignment with who you are and what your goals are, then the how will automatically fill in.
Mm-hmm. I want to give everybody something to do here for a little challenge as we are on this. But Jen and I have been doing a lot of work within this, is finding our higher selves. So Leslie, what would be like a tip for you to give people to access that person, that higher part of ourselves, to find her or him, whoever that higher self is?
Oh, I love it. So I'm going to just give you a really simplified exercise. All right. So this is, think of either one of the top accomplishments you have ever achieved or had, or It can be if you are on a path, if you're in a network marketing company or you have a coaching business or you're an entrepreneur and you have an amazing goal. And it's something that it's big. It's big. It's something you're really proud of or will be really proud of. It'll have a big impact. And you can close your eyes and you can be in that moment, whether it is future thinking or reflecting back. You can be in that moment. There is a version of you that you can see and feel right away. As a matter of fact, the cells in your body will immediately connect, even if it's a future state, will connect with that version of you in that moment. Your mind is that powerful. And so take a moment, and whether it's going backwards or forwards, think of that accomplishment happening when you're in that space. Who is that person? And take that and journal out, write out, like brain dump every characteristic of that person that you can think of. And the beauty in that is that whether that is a person that you have seen in real life because you already accomplished it, or whether it's the person that you see accomplishing the big thing, like getting to the top of your company or having that successful business for your family, that knowing that that person is already alive inside of you, they are you. And you don't have to wait until then, or you don't have to re-earn that person by accomplishing the next thing in order for her to show up. And so that is, see it, take a moment, feel, and then journal out or brain dump, whichever way you like to put it, all the characteristics that you can see in her and of her in that moment. And that's your reminder of how to show up as her now, because you don't have to earn being her. She is you, and she is already inside of you. And this is the biggest part of the work that I do with people when we start out, is them learning to see that higher version of themselves. Because when we stop self-shaming, judging, criticizing, we stop allowing imposter syndrome and comparison to be our guiding stars, when we stop allowing other people to speak their nonsense and the truths that they live by, that were given to them by their parents that didn't know any better, like when we stop allowing all of that to influence who we are showing up as, we will then accomplish everything and more that we were called to accomplish in this lifetime.
Ah, that's so good. It's so powerful. I feel so fired up and excited as I hear you talk about all this, because like I said, Jen and I just going through this now. Guys, this, as you're listening to this, like this tool is so powerful when you really do the work on this, because as you step into recognizing who her, capital H-E-R, who she is, you really embody I don't want to say different, because she is still me, but it feels like I'm a different person, a different level of myself for sure. And you react and you do things differently than when you're in the small and limited mindset. 100%. This is such a powerful thing.
So good.
So Leslie, do you see the same underlying patterns for people for what's holding them back? Do you see a common theme for people?
For sure. I mean, it obviously it's not always exactly the same, but absolutely I do. And it's very easy in the coaching process and the mentorship space, as you are working with people, it becomes more apparent because you're coming at it from a different angle. So you can absolutely see it very clearly. And it usually is just one of a few different things. And along with that, it's usually where people are, so one of a few things is that it's limiting belief, it's imposter syndrome, it's I'm not enough. right? Like that's, or some variation of that. And so I would say, I mean, the short answer is absolutely. And then I think if you were talking from a really deep, deep level, it probably all stems down to one thing, but I don't know what that would be, but all that similar space, because the reality is when people are resistant or people are held back, holding themselves back, it's usually, it is never about the how. It is never about the how. And that's the number one thing that people will tell me they need. When we have a conversation about whether we're going to work together, they want to know, how do I do this? Give me the ABC on this. What about that? And it's never about that, actually.
It's interesting because even myself, for people that I work with, you have the people that are, I don't know if it's hyper organized, right? They're the people that take lots and lots and lots of diligent notes, or they have the binders and binders of information and research and all that. And there's definitely a place for that.
Mm-hmm.
However, I find those are the people that take the longest to break through and not realize that it's necessarily the information or the how, versus, you know what, maybe during this training or this conversation or this coaching, I put everything down and actually listen and absorb. That's been a hard thing for a lot of people, right? Actively listening versus listening, those are two different things.
Well,
Two completely different things.
I mean,
I think,
for sure.
go ahead.
Sorry. You know, the thing about it is too, we can both listen to a podcast or watch a movie and walk away with two completely different things, right? So going back and revisiting it and going over. So you guys know this, I am a voracious learner. I love to learn all the things. I will read all the books, listen to all the podcasts, do all the things. And yet in that same, and I'm a voracious note taker. Like it's ridiculous. I have a closet full of notebooks of notes from different things. However, in that same vein, I can tell you that it's not this race to get through it all. It's knowing that being present for it and allowing yourself to be transformed by what you're learning is very different. Being exposed to something, being exposed to information is not the same as allowing it to impact who you are and what you're doing.
Absolutely. And I think actually the book that Leslie is having us read, now I'm going to botch the title, but Change Your Paradigm. Christy, help me out here.
Change Your Paradigm, Change Your Life.
Proctor, one of the things he talks about is, if you have ever read Think and Grow Rich, he hasn't just read it once, twice, 3, 4, 5. He said in his life, he had read that book over 100,000 times. That is insane to me, where so many of us in the personal development world, or if you are in the growth mindset, you know, we read things and we're on to the next thing, hoping we get that next aha, almost that next dopamine hit, right? That makes us feel really good, where we can learn so much from just going back and reabsorbing something we've already spent the time on. And I think that was really huge for me. And I think a lot of times what's standing in our own way is wanting to get to the next thing. So I want to ask you, you did answer my question, which was great. Do you have a mentor? We know you do. So I think I want to change the question and ask you is, A, do you have more than one mentor source? Mm-hmm. And B, how did you choose the right mentor for you?
Oh, those are great questions. So I do have more than one, of course, because then there are the people in the online space, people that don't know me, that they impact me. But something in that same line is, I want to say that I have hired and been under mentors that were not the right fit. And that's okay too. It doesn't make them bad, but being okay that doesn't mean that mentorship isn't for me. Like I shouldn't hire a coach. But I can tell you that part of growth is putting yourself in a vulnerable position that you are allowing someone else to speak into you. And it doesn't mean that every time you find someone and hire them or work with them, that it's going to be the perfect fit. So I do want to put that out there because it is really important. I am a huge believer that everybody should have someone else that for the accountability, mentorship, coach, whatever. I know that it's not in everybody's budget all the time, but like in network marketing, your mentorship comes with your business, right? And so one of the most brilliant things about the industry is that you are surrounded by people, like-minded people, and people that have already done what you want to do. So you get all the benefits of that. But then going to into the kind of the bigger world, I've hired poorly. I've hired mentors and coaches that were not great for me, and the things that I didn't align with. However, I choose, largely on intuition. If I'm being really transparent, I'm a believer that you have to give yourself enough space to trust your gut. And so I am a believer that if you have a conversation or watch something, see something, learn about someone, and that feels right, it is probably going to be the right thing. Not 100%. But so I go a lot on trust. I look for some testimonials and what other people have to say. I think that is a big part of it. Even if you were let's say you were looking to, let's say someone's looking to join a network marketing company and they are, they'd be signing up with their friend. Well, I would absolutely purpose to have a conversation with the friend's mentor and maybe even their mentor, and really looking to have conversations with people above and beyond where that person has been. And I think that it's an area where a lot of people in that industry specifically are afraid to push, because they're afraid they're going to be sold to or be convinced or something like that. When in fact, that mentorship and guidance is a huge piece of the advantages of the industry. And so having conversations, if you can get connected with them, really seeing who else is behind there or who has worked with them already is a big part of it. And then, of course, in the online space, I have some really, like Brendon Burchard is one of my favorites. And I do a lot with him in his paid containers behind the scenes. So he puts a lot out there that's free. I mean, you can get so much of that's free through his Instagram and YouTube and whatnot. So, but I think that it's just important to give yourself, to not look for mentors in every space and go for quantity, but definitely hone in to find a couple, maybe one that you're having some accountability with. And then when you're looking for that extra one or two in the online space, but not looking for any and all things, because it does get overwhelming. And then you're back to that place where it's like a patchwork quilt and nothing actually goes together.
Yeah, I love that. The things that stuck out to me maybe if you're listening, you don't know this about me personally, but the big word that always sticks out for me where I have had growth and continue is vulnerability. I tend to be the skeptical and happy, healthy, and skeptical. And the reason being is because I've always had this coat of armor, and having to take that armor off and be vulnerable is really the only way for me to actually achieve the optimum version of myself and the vision that I'm trying to accomplish. So if this is something that you're struggling with, know that it's okay to be a recovering anti-vulnerable, whatever you want to call it. That's okay. And on the other side, that is the reason I absolutely love this industry, is because it brought Leslie Humphrey to me and vice versa. However, sometimes maybe you've already said yes to a network marketing company and the mentorship isn't going the way you planned. Guess what? That doesn't mean it doesn't work. you have the opportunity to find the mentor that works for you. And this can even be brought to a level of corporate America or working in a different job. Is typically the person above you is intended to be your mentor. And sometimes that in my past has worked in my favor and sometimes it hasn't. But go out there, use your gut and find the person that makes you feel right, but not comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a huge one. Your mentor is not there to coddle you and make you feel comfortable. Your mentor is there to support you, cheerlead you, and push you to through the discomfort to what you're actually capable of. And I think that's huge. And as we wrap this up, I just want to say thank you so much for being our very first guest, Leslie Humphrey. And I think it was an amazing conversation. If you didn't even get one tidbit out of this, I'm sorry. Put it, rewind, replay, because you were distracted. I truly think that's what happens. But I think all of this conversation is what everybody needs. It doesn't matter if you're in network marketing. It doesn't matter if you're on a fitness journey. It doesn't matter if you are a struggling mom. Every single person needs someone in their corner rooting for them. Christy, do you have anything you want to say before
I think that was a great
up?
sum up. But yeah, somebody with a different vision for things outside, like that's the whole point, is because you can't see where you're supposed to go sometimes, and you can't, as we talked about before, you don't always believe it. So you need that outside view. And I think what you said, Leslie, about trusting your gut is a great point, because like we said, we're lucky that you were in our business, but it turned out amazing for both Jen and I, and that we have a great relationship with you. But if somebody doesn't have that access to keep searching for the right fit, I think that's a great piece of advice for people. So thank you so much, Leslie. We love having you on. And yeah, for everybody listening, join the conversation. Like, let's chat about it. And you can find us on Instagram at Happy Healthy Skeptical, and we will see you next time.
And actually, if you're looking, you can follow Leslie Humphrey on Instagram at Leslie Humphrey, because if you're looking for your mentor, she's a good one.
Thanks, you guys. Love you.